My name is Sean. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Blink, and I couldn't be more excited to be back with you today. It is hard to believe it's already been 3 months since we were last here together. It feels like only yesterday, and at the same time, a lifetime ago. I really couldn't be happy to be back in Blink HQ. This is not a fake background. I'm actually here in the flesh, which is awesome. Things starting to return to normal. Fingers crossed. And yeah, really excited to be with you all today. The first thing you will have probably already noticed is we've rebranded. Yes, it's now Backstage with Blink. Same event, different brand. No, kidding. Now, hopefully this new brand reflects what we really want to do today, which is to take you behind the scenes of everything that's happening at Blink, show you what we've been working on, the stuff we're releasing, hear from you about what you'd like us to do next, and of course, hear some awesome customer stories. Now, we want this to be interactive. So at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A button. Please click on it and start submitting some questions, not to me, please, but to any of the Blink team, anything you want to know. Like, we're here, please. At the end of the show, we're going to try and get to as many of the questions as we can. So please start submitting your questions now. We have an action-packed agenda for you today, starting off with a rapid overview of everything the product team have been working on. We're going to have Gavin, Flo, and Lawrence from the Blink team running you through exactly what's been happening, what we've already released, what we're about to release, and what's coming next, which is really, really cool. And then we're going to have the main event, a fantastic panel of superstars from the US emergency medical services industry, EMS. That panel is going to be compared by what can only be described as the enigmatic double act of Matt and George from the Blink team, the two Brits trying to take over the US from the basement here at Blink Towers, because unfortunately they can't get their visas. But trust me, everyone over there, their bags are packed. They're ready to jump across the pond just as soon as they can. And in the meantime, they've been working the night shifts, helping all of our US customers. And thank you to all of those new customers who are here today for the first time. There's many new faces here from in the UK, from the rail and care sectors, in the US, from the property, waste, environmental services and ambulance sectors, and hopefully watching on record from down under, our friends in Australia and New Zealand, from utility sector, food manufacturing, aged care and disability care. Welcome anyone that's new. Thank you for putting your trust and faith in us. We couldn't be more delighted to have you as part of the Blink family. It has been an incredible 3 months here at Blink. It's just going mental. Like, the team has grown, I don't know, I think we were like 30, 35 people last time we spoke. We've hired another 20 people since then, but we're accelerating even more our recruitment with a goal to be 100 people by the end of this year. And of course, the whole reason for doing this is so that we can better service you, our customers. We want to accelerate our product roadmap. We want to accelerate hiring and entering into new markets, and we want to accelerate our partnership program. Now, come here. I've got a little secret to share with you. This is just between us friends, okay? It doesn't go out this room. There's loads of other things we've been working on that I can't quite tell you about yet. Massive fundraising round that I'm working on. Incredible partnerships we're just about to sign, I hope, about to sign. New offices that we're opening, amazing new hires that we're making to the team, and much more that I can't quite share with you yet, but believe me, join us for the next event and you will not believe what's been happening. Hopefully, fingers crossed, pray for me, in Blink. Now, partnerships are a key part of everything we do at Blink. And for more and more of you, in fact, I'd say most now, Blink has become the digital front door that your workers use to access all of the services they need every day. They open Blink, they click on one icon, they can access a HR system, an e-learning platform, a rostering system. They can access their pay slips. Everything's just a click away. And this is using our unique single sign-on capability that works on personal smartphones. If you haven't already turned this on, please come and talk to us. It is magical. Frontline workers absolutely love it. And crucially, it keeps people coming back to the app every day. And what that means is while they're there, you can capture them with content, with engagement, with questions. You can start a conversation, and crucially, start making people feel part of a community, amplify your culture, and start making people feel part of something bigger than themselves. It's when these things happen together in one app productivity and people getting things done and people feeling part of the organization that the real magic happens. So please, 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 if you haven't already turned on single sign-on, make sure you do. Now, another part of integrations isn't single sign-on, but we spoke about it at the last event, and that was our new integration we launched with Microsoft 365 and SharePoint. And I just very quickly want to show you what that looks like. If you just bear with me 1 second, I'm going to try a live demo. Here we are. Now, you'll notice this might not be the app you're familiar with. Lawrence Carver is going to kill me. Lawrence is our head of product director. I'm not meant to be showing this. This is our new iOS app coming soon near you, still work in progress. Anyway, if I switch to this sexy new hub that we've got coming, you'll see if I scroll down this list that a couple of these icons, the brand assets below HR and the Blinkiversity one below content, they've got a little special icon on them. It's a SharePoint icon. And if I click on these, you'll see if I click on brand assets, I'm now navigating SharePoint content live. We're not storing this content in Blink, we're fetching it from SharePoint. So if I click on, for example, templates, maybe I click on our letterhead, it's immediately going to load that content from SharePoint. So if I go back out and I'm going to click on the Blinkiversity, which is something we're working on internally, maybe the story so far, which is where I kind of share the ups and the downs of the journey, and there's been a lot of downs, believe me. And I click on the story, there you go. That is a PowerPoint presentation previewed in Blink, loaded directly from SharePoint, not stored on SharePoint. That content is managed inside, it's not stored on Blink, that content is managed in SharePoint. It is magical. I mean, you can see just as I'm navigating this, just how fast some of this stuff is. I mean, it's really slick. You can even do it from the feed. Like if I click on the Blinkiversity from the feed, that is awesome. And, you know, I think, to be honest, it's probably better than Microsoft's own apps, but let's not say that outside of our little group here. And I was talking about single sign-on a minute ago. You'll see at the top here, I've got Workday icon. Let's just click on that Workday icon and see what happens. We just loaded Workday, logged in, authenticated user, ready to do something that's important to me. No username and password, no downloading a clunky app, no ringing the help desk to reset my password, ready to go. That's the magic of single sign-on. It's just completely frictionless. Now let me stop sharing that. And yeah, that's all from me. Without any more ado, I'm going to hand over to Gavin, who heads up product engineering here at Blink, the team that makes all that possible.
Thank you, Sean. Good afternoon, everyone. It is great to take you all backstage for a second time and give you all an update on what we've been working on a product in Blink over the last 3 months. So since our last event, we've been hard at work on our new SharePoint integration that Sean just showed, but that's not all we've been working on. We have received loads of feedback through the product portal that you all have access to, and from conversations with you on what other features you would like to see us add to Blink next. And I'm going to talk about 4 new features today, all 4 of which have been very popular requests for a while. And starting with how you manage your users and teams in Blink. So one of the ongoing challenges you have as an administrator in Blink is setting up your users and teams inside of Blink and keeping those up to date over time. So for those of you using Azure AD or Okta, we already had a great way to pull your users into Blink through Skim. And now we've added support for syncing your groups in Active Directories with Blink as well. So for anyone not familiar with Skim, Skim is an open standard that allows you to automate user and group provisioning, and it's supported by tools such as Azure AD and Okta. So this means you can use your existing groups in Active Directory and pull those in through Skim as teams in Blink, alongside with all users that you've got inside of those groups. So this should make team management a lot easier over time. Now, next, I like to talk about a new way to tailor the notifications that you receive when you're using the feed in Blink. So currently, Blink will send you notifications about comments or likes happening on a feed post if you're the person that sent that feed post or if you've left a comment in the feed post. So we recognize you want more control over what notifications you receive. And this feature is a first improvement we are making to improve on this. You can now select to follow a feed post if you've not commented on it already, or to stop following a feed post after you've left a comment and you're no longer interested in getting notified or updates on that feed post. So let me show you what it looks like in the app. I'm going to bring up the desktop app. And I'm in my feed here. I've got a few feed posts. And for example, I've got this feed post here from Felicity, and I've left a comment, and I've been getting some notifications on that feed post, which is great. But I've heard it. I'm not gonna want to get more notifications about this, so I'd like to stop following what's happening. And there's a new option in this menu here that you've got with each feed post, where you can now simply select to either follow or unfollow the post on this feed post. And similarly, for example, this one, I've not started following any conversation here, or I've not interacted with it. But here I could, for example, decide to start following what's happening and stay up to date with what's happening on that feed post. So that is following and unfollowing a feed post. Moving on to another feature that we've been asked for a lot, and that is having a way to find feed posts by who the sender was. So we know that as you use the feed more and more, finding that one feed post that you need can become more difficult, especially when there's a lot going on in the feed at your company. We want to make it easier for you all to find what you're looking for in the feed, and we hope this will help with that. So let me bring up the mobile app to show how that works. So I'm in my app here, and as you've probably seen in the top left, there's a button that has been there for a while, which is a filter option that allows you to filter by who's the feed post has been sent to. But we've got a new option in here now that allows you to also filter your feed by who the feed post was sent from. So that the two, as it is here, that is how you know it today, where you can select the team that this feed post has been shared with. And you've got this new from, where I can select, for example, if I want to know what the news team has been sending, I can find that. So it also does support aliases, as you can see here. They're here at the top. But if what you probably have a lot is, I want to find that one feed post that I sent a while back. So I'm logged in as Olaf in this demo, and I can find my feed post that I sent earlier, just like that. And that is how filtering for posts about who sent it works. And hopefully finding that one feed post that you sent a month ago will be easier than ever. Now, on to the fourth and final new feature that I'd like to talk about today, which is all to do with language. So one challenge we know that many of you face is engaging with a frontline workforce that is increasingly multilingual. The different languages that are spoken within your workforce can quickly become hard to manage, especially when trying to communicate with what's happening in your company and keep everyone up to date. So inside of Blink, there are two ways we are trying to help with this challenge. And one is to make our mobile apps available in multiple languages so that the copy that's inside the app can easily be understood. We've added this a while back, and we now support more than 10 languages. And now we're also adding a new way for users to translate content inside the app using a new feature we call on-demand translation. So on-demand translation is an easy way to translate feed posts, comments, and pages in Hub on the fly into more than 100 languages. Let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to bring up the mobile app again. So imagine if I was someone coming in, I'm just going to go out of where I was. If I was one of your frontline workers coming in, the first thing I would do is I would go into settings. And as you can see, I've got a new language setting option here. I'm going to go in there, and there's two options or two settings I can set here. One is the app language, and that is what's going to set the language that my app, my Blink app, is in. So all the copy that we've put in the app can be translated into up to 10 languages. And we can always add support if you've got requirements for a new language. You can get in touch with your customer success manager if you'd like to request another language. And there's a new option now, which is this translation language, which is currently set to English. But let's say that, for example, I'd like to translate my content into Spanish. So I can select that language, I can press done, and now I can go back in the feed. And immediately you see a new option on this feed card, a new button here that says view translation. So this is a post that was posted earlier. I'm going to just press this, and it translates it right underneath in Spanish. It's kept my emoji, which is really cool. There's another feed post right below, something about rolling out a really cool new app. That sounds pretty cool. Let me translate that. And it's all translated in Spanish. It's kept my rich styles that I've used in my feed post, which is great. Similarly, there's a comment left here on a feed post that I saw earlier. If I want to translate that, that's also possible. And it just gets swapped with the translation, in this case, in Spanish. Last, if I've got a page that I'd like to access a lot, and one page I like to look at often is my benefits page. So I can go in, and there's a new button now telling me I can translate this, which is awesome, because I would like to read about all these cool benefits. Just gone, all right. It's all in Spanish now, and I can understand it in my mother tongue, for example, if it was in Spanish. So that is on-demand translation. And that also completes the features that I was talking about, or was going to talk about today. So the features that I've talked about, Skim Group Sync, following or unfollowing feed posts, and the new on-demand translation add-on, they are available now. And the new filter for feed by sender will be coming to a Blink near you next week. Now, you're probably all wondering what features are going to come next. And to talk more about that, I'd like to hand over to our product director, Lawrence. Lawrence?
Hi, Gavin. Thank you very much. Let me share my screen. Hi, everyone. I'm very thrilled to be here and be able to have a chance to give you a sneak peek of some of the things we're working on, most of which will be released very soon, a few that will take a bit longer, but bear with us, they are coming. I thought we'd kick things off with two features, kind of building on top of the Skim Group Sync, that stuff that Gavin just showed, but two features coming for admins to help remove the burden of team and user management. They are bulk change users and dynamic teams. With bulk change to users, this is a brand new tool. It's built on top of our existing import flow, where you can import up to 5,000 users at once. This now allows you to change up to 5,000 user profiles at once. So if you're changing domains for your company, you need to give everyone a new email address, you're restructuring the company and need to give everyone a new line manager or move them around teams, or you've made a mistake, you've added a typo into your import and you need to go and correct that, this is the tool for you. On top of that, dynamic teams is something I'm very, very excited about. It's again to do with like team management and making that a lot easier for you. And what it basically allows you to do is set rules to automatically add, remove users into and out of teams. Good example would be you want everyone with a job title like engineer who works in Grand Rapids, Michigan to be added to your Region 6 team. This will do it for you and it will save you time. So I guess the benefit of here is saving admin's time, but the flip side of that is it makes sure that those people, those engineers in Grand Rapids have access to everything they need all of the time. You don't have to go in and when you add someone new to the company, you don't have to go and make sure they're in the right teams. As long as they have the right job title, the right location, or some other rules you can set up, they'll be there. They'll have access to everything in Feed and Hub that you need. Right, the next thing I'm going to show you is a feature that's live, but one some of you might not know about and one I make use of quite a lot. It is in Feed, it is on mobile. And what it allows you to do is preview a post before you send it. It's really simple. You go and create your feed post as you do today. And then if you go into this post formatting menu that you will have seen, you click on this button in the bottom right-hand corner, and there you are, preview of your post. So if you spot any typos or you want to change an image, just click back, make the change, preview it again, and just be fully comfortable with what you're about to send out before you send it. Right, Sean's kind of ruined this a little bit for me. I was going to talk to you about a brand new iOS experience. He seems to have leaked that already, but I'll just have to up him a bit. So he's shown off a few screens. The app looks incredible, but it's not just a fresh lick of paint. Every single screen has been updated. Typography has been improved for legibility. Animations and transitions are slicker, and apps faster, more accessible, and more responsive than ever. A few of us have got it on our phones already, and it's such a joy to use. I can't wait if you get hands on it. And a massive well done to the team who've been working hard on it. It's coming really soon. And this is where I get one over on Sean. We're not stopping there. We're already looking into what's coming next. And Sean hasn't even seen this. We are looking into ways and new ideas for how we can make your content shine, how we can make it sure it reaches everyone, how it looks more engaging, gets people engaging with it, giving you more data to control what happens within your workforce, looking at ways to make all charts more visual and easier to use and navigate throughout, up and down your hierarchy at work, mean, watch this space. There's loads of cool stuff coming. If anyone wants to talk to me about it, please do. We're looking for ideas of how we can build on this to make it better and better for you. And finally, a feature that I know a load of you are waiting for, and I'm very thrilled to say that being able to set a status on your user profile is coming, and it's coming soon. So very soon on all 3 apps, iOS, Android, and web, you'll be able to set a status to tell everyone you're away, and the option to add a little status message to give them a bit more context, whether you're on holiday, who's contacting your absence. So everywhere your avatar will appear throughout the app, you'll see a little red cross to tell everyone you're not currently available. And if they go into a chat with you, they'll see things like your status message. So that's where they'll be able to see you're away, you're back on the 24th of August, and in your absence, talk to Gavin. Can't wait for you to all have that. I can't wait to use it either. And finally, just to wrap up and kind of echo what Gavin said a few minutes ago, we do have a way for everyone on this call and everyone who ever uses Blink to tell us what they need in Blink. If you head over to portal.joinblink.com, it's a great way to vote for features that we're looking into. You can tell us which of those are most important to you. But if it's not listed there, there's a button in the bottom corner to submit your own ideas. That's all. Well, that's not all. There's lots and lots of other cool stuff coming. But for now, I'll hand over to Flo, our wonderful customer success lead.
Thank you, Lawrence. And hello, everybody. Today, I'm going to be showing you a very exciting new micro app that will be available to all of you. We've called this micro app Colleague Recognition. Its purpose is to empower your employees to recognize each other's efforts and acknowledge the incredible things that they've done. So this feature can be used to celebrate fantastic work, thank yous, anniversaries, birthdays, and so on, all directly to the feed. So now I'm going to show you how it works. 2 seconds. Okay. Now, what you can see here is obviously the mobile app, but of course, colleague recognition will work just the same on web and desktop as well. All you need to do is add the micro app to your hub via the admin portal. So in this instance, you can see that I've added the colleague recognition micro app to the forms section that you can see here. But I've also made it a quick link, so it becomes a tile at the top of the page. So it makes it really easy for my workforce to access it at any time. If I want to recognize an employee or a colleague, all I need to do is click on or tap colleague recognition. In this example here, there are 5 different options. So we've got thank you, you're a star, work anniversary, happy birthday, and congratulations. So the micro app as it is right now, as you can see here, is available to all of you, but it is entirely customizable. So if you would like to discuss customized options or ways that you want to personalize it yourself, please reach out to my team, customer success, your customer success manager, or our customer support team, and we can get some more information on this for you. For this example, I'm going to choose you're a star. So then you need to choose the individual that you want to recognize. So in this case, in this example, I'm going to choose Donna. Then you have the option to personalize it a bit more. So you can add a bit more of a message to thank that person. Hopefully. So at the moment, my post is only going to go to Donna, but what I want to do is I want to more publicly recognize and reward her for her hard work. So just the same as it is whenever you share a post to the feed, you can choose teams, you can choose individuals, or a mixture of the two. But what I want to do is I want to choose the Flows Demo team, which is my all-encompassing company team. So everybody will be able to see this piece of recognition. Then you get the option to look at a preview, double check everything, make sure everything's working really well. If there's anything that you want to edit, all you need to do is click on the back arrow button in the top left-hand corner, and you can go back and change things. But if you're happy and you're ready to share it, all you do is click share. Then your piece of kudos has been shared, and you have the option to return to Blink, or if you want to recognize another colleague or another employee, you can send some more kudos. What I'm going to do is I'm going to return to Blink because I want to show you what it now looks like on the feed. So everybody in the audience that I've shared this piece of recognition to can now see this in the feed, and everybody can like, comment, and congratulate that individual even more. So that's it from me. I'm now going to introduce the dynamic duo. That's Matt, our general manager of the US, and George, who's one of our sales development representatives.
Thank you, Flo, and welcome everybody to our very own EMS panel. I'm coming to you live from my kitchen in Southwest London, and thank you so much for joining today. It's an absolute pleasure to have every one of you here today. I should say though, just before we get going, and for those of you not in the know, the EMS stands for, as Sean mentioned, Emergency Medical Services, but it encompasses everything pre-hospital. Now, we have got an absolute action-packed agenda for the next 30 minutes. But before we get into that, I wanted to just let you know that today's discussion will be very relaxed, very informal, very conversational. And importantly, it's not scripted. Well, apart from this little bit. So who knows what might happen? But one thing I do know is that for the next 30 minutes, we will be discussing all things EMS. We'll be looking back to some of the challenges that the operators have faced over the past year. What are the trends going to be for the future? And really importantly, what other industries can take from those learnings from the EMS space. So just before we get into it, and I want to let you know that we are taking questions throughout. So if you do have a question for any one of our panelists or myself and George, please do put it in the chat and we will come to that at the end. Mr. Monk, over to you.
Thank you, Matt. And from Southwest London all the way to Oxford, where I come to you live from day 7 of isolation as myself and my 8 friends continue to battle COVID for a second time under one roof. Add to that a healthy bit of hay fever and you've got quite the mix, but things are on the up because as Matt mentioned, we've got an absolutely all-star cast. Some have called them the Mount Rushmore of EMS. And first up, it's the 2 leading ladies of the industry, Transformative's very own Danielle Thomas, VP of Strategic Initiatives, and Taylor Roulette, SVP of People Strategy and Experience, better known as D&T. They're the masterminds between the success of all 3 ambulance services that they run. D&T, absolute pleasure to have them both with us. Next, Scott Moore, HR lawyer extraordinaire. He's one of the good guys, one of the ones we like. He's a man that's held almost every position in EMS, from EMT all the way up to CEO. He's the founder of the brand new Newton 360 product, which is looking to revolutionize employee appraisals. Scott, good to have you with us.
Thank you.
And next to Scott, we have got Ron Coronto, Executive Vice President of Operations for Cataldo Ambulance Service, the largest 911 provider in Massachusetts, and described by Scott himself, one of the greatest bosses of all time. And I'm sure that is absolutely echoed by everyone at the Cataldo family. Ron, and I truly mean this, the pleasure is all ours to have you here. We may be joined by an additional guest, a man that probably needs no introduction as he is known by in the industry as the Simon Cowell of EMS. He was currently on a plane over the Atlantic and was due to join us today, but got a little bit held up. So he's somewhere winging his way through the Norwich countryside. And if he joins us, excellent. If not, we'll have to send him the recording and I'm sure he will commiserate on all the fun he missed out on.
Yeah, fingers crossed, Matt. But I mean, for those in the audience not in EMS, I mean, this is really what it was probably like in the 70s interviewing Fleetwood Mac. I mean, this is a serious group of 5 people, but I can assure you that unlike them, well, we're missing one of them, unlike them, they all get on very well. They're all very good friends. And so I think we're in for a lot of fun. But I think it's enough of the eulogizing. I see Taylor's enjoying herself far too much. And so let's dive into it. Let's turn the clocks back to a year ago. And, you know, we're in the height of the first wave of the pandemic. You'd think that staff are really overworked, morale's at a low, turnover's spiking. Danielle, Taylor, give us an idea of what it was like on the front line.
Thank you. So you would think that our staff was nervous and scared, which they probably were at the height of the pandemic. But as we got into it, we saw that all of our staff really rose to the occasion, and they were highly engaged. They weren't going anywhere. They were going to do the right thing for the community, the right thing for their patients. So ironically, during the pandemic and probably the last 15 or 16 months, we had staff ready to go. They were putting in the OT hours because our volume of patients had become more acute and higher. And now we're actually seeing probably what other industries are not. Our people are tired. the height of the pandemic is over and things are going back to the new normal. And now they need some time off. Now they're weary. They've put in a strong 15 months of really busting their butts. And so it's probably the opposite of what some other industries are feeling right now. We were strong through the pandemic, and about a month ago, we saw things going in the other direction.
That's really interesting, Danielle, and not probably counterintuitive to what you would think. I mean, Taylor, anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think Danielle is spot on, and I'm sure, you know, other folks in the industry would agree. Our folks are designed for this. They run toward danger. They run toward things that most folks would shy away from, and their adrenaline went much longer than I'm sure we all expected it to. And they now really do need to rest and group, and we're looking forward to helping them do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Ron, for you at Cataldo, what were things like for you back a year ago?
I think the best way to describe it is uncertainty. You know, when this first happened, I don't think anyone knew what exactly COVID was, how is it transmitted, how do I protect myself, my family. As Danielle and Taylor both said, our industry is known for stepping up when we're in the worst of situations. So our staff will come in when there's a disaster. They'll work extra hours when there's a pandemic, but in the back of their mind, it's the unknown. From an industry standpoint, a lot of our business shut down. There was a period where it nearly came to a screeching halt. Obviously, hospitals and everyone went on shelter in place. You know, elective surgeries and appointments all stopped. Emergency calls even came to a near halt themselves because people didn't want to go to the emergency room. They were afraid if they went to the hospital, they'd become exposed to COVID. So, and Danielle mentioned it earlier, you know, when they did start to call, these patients were sicker because they waited longer, their condition worsened. So our paramedics and EMTs really had to step up and treat these patients that were sicker than normal. So it was a roller coaster of a ride. I think, you know, for our folks too, again, that unknown, the unknown, how do I go home to my family? I have young children at home. I've got elder parents that maybe live with me. I don't want to expose them. So we had many employees that were working many hours and living in the basement of their house, or, you know, changing their clothes before they went home and showering just so they could limit the potential exposure. So it's been an interesting 12 months to say the least.
I could only imagine, Ron. And I guess just before we go any further, a huge thank you to all of your first responders, to everything you've done over the past 12 to 18 months. And perhaps we will come back to and start to understand a little bit around, from an organizational perspective, how you try to combat some of those trends and uncertainty and try to remove that uncertainty. But before we do, and Danielle, I think you mentioned this, that you're starting to see now the impact of COVID in terms of the turnover numbers. And I think that's fairly apparent now across all providers. So Scott, perhaps you can shed some light on, with all the work that you do with the American Ambulance Association, what do you think are the, or how do you see this manifesting itself in the industry, and what do you think those key trends will be?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I think, you know, sort of heading into the pandemic, EMS and all of its sort of facets, whether it be public safety based EMS or private or nonprofit type based EMS, we're already in what was really a decade slide of available workforce. So, you know, we estimate that we're roughly about 40,000 field providers short right now of where we would need to be. And it's estimated by the Bureau of Labor Statistics here at the United States Department of Labor that by 2030, we'll need an additional 42 to 44,000 field providers, which what we're seeing, you know, and I would guess that both, you know, the folks over at Transformative and Cataldo, and I hear this from ambulance providers all over the country, is that they have a standing number of open full-time positions right now. With the additional work that their workforce is having to do Both Danielle and Ron sort of captured this idea of fatigue. I think that for a lot of our providers, when Taylor mentioned that they run towards danger, usually that is an episodic danger, right? That occurs, and then an hour later it's over, and you get to go home and you get to decompress, and you have those other support services. Well, over the last 15 months, folks weren't getting to go home and decompress because they were concerned about issues with their family, but then that support network that also existed because they could leave the job behind when they left work, it was just not happening. So we're seeing, the AAA does a study that my company sponsored this year. The Newton 360 sponsored this year regarding turnover. We have the first draft, and I think the final draft will be published within the next week or so. But we didn't see a significant a significant rise in turnover. What we saw was it hold relatively still. And I think some of that was that, people were afraid to make moves in jobs, but really principally what we did hear, and we heard this across the country, were folks who did EMS as a second job, and that is probably 40% of the workforce that we rely on, were either held by their other job and said, we don't want you doing that kind of work, or they were just saying, you know what, I'm going to hunker down. I'm going to maybe keep my part-time job on the shelf for a while. And that really, in many instances, we've seen ambulance services, close around the country. So it has been, I would say probably the single largest event in the history of EMS from a workforce perspective, next to possibly, September 11th. So I don't think we'll begin to feel the full measure of this impact for another, 2 to 5 years.
And do you think providers are now looking forward and taking note of that huge EMT shortage that is coming down the line and trying to introduce initiatives to combat it and prevent it?
Yeah, so I know certainly in my own private legal practice, I'm working, trying to work with my clients to help them come up with solutions. But in addition to that, my work that I do with the AAA, we are working on a plan at the national level to try and address some of the legislative opportunities that are available to try and resolve or at least begin to chip away at this issue. We are not the first healthcare profession. There was a shortage of doctors, there were a shortage of nurses, and there were efforts made to tackle some of those. What we're seeing here, at least in the U.S., and I'm pretty sure that this is occurring, over on the other side of the ocean. We're seeing more healthcare professions grabbing up paramedics and EMTs because they're recognizing the high level of medical care that they provide. And frankly, EMS folks tend to be logistics experts, right? We're good at getting healthcare where it needs to be without a lot of effort. So we're actually not seeing fewer EMTs and paramedics become certified. We're just seeing more people grabbing them because of the unique set of skills and care that they can provide. That's
fascinating, Scott. And I guess then, or perhaps to look at it another way, Ron, given what Scott is saying there in terms of how providers almost need to become more competitive because people and talent are being taken up so quickly, what are Cataldo doing to try and combat, I guess, both staff turnover, but also be an attractive provider to bring new talent into the business?
Sure. Scott gave a great overview. It's been a challenge even prior to the pandemic. Staffing has been really, as Scott said, across the country, a significant challenge for all providers. We're seeing it even more now on the municipal side. So those cities and towns who staff their own ambulance, they never really had an issue staffing, and now they're pushing out on social media ads and so forth to try and recruit into their space. So it is an issue. I can tell you that we, probably like most other services here, are trying to encourage folks to come join our team. You don't need to be certified. We'll certify you. So come in, we'll put you through our EMT program. There are a couple of different options. There's an accelerated program, or there's a traditional program that takes about 3 months. The accelerated's about 6 weeks. We'll pay you to take the training. So sit in the classroom, we'll pay you. We're trying to do outreach to other organizations, veterans associations, unemployment, to try and tell folks that because of the pandemic, because people have been displaced and are out of work, this could be a new career opportunity for you. So a lot of effort going on, but as important to the recruitment in trying to change the way people view ambulance services. I say all the time, as we talk about this recruitment effort, no one ever says, I want to go work for an ambulance service. You ask a young person, what do you want to do? I want to be a police officer, a firefighter, a doctor, or a nurse. No one ever says, I want to go to an ambulance service. We need to change that. We as an organization or as a entity, need to change the thought process there that you can make a career of it in this industry. So a lot of work going on there, but as important to the recruitment piece, the retention piece is just as critical, if not more critical, because our industry is known for high turnover. This is considered a stepping stone. I go become an EMT, then I go on to become a nurse. I become a physician's assistant, you name it. So how do we retain those folks that we have? And for me, communication's so important. And that's why, obviously, we're partnered with you all to have that easy method to communicate with our field staff real time on a daily basis. So, but yeah, recruitment continues to be, there's no quick fix. We're working more together today than we ever have as private providers to help assure we can deliver good quality patient care, service our customers well, and yet be competitive and profitable.
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. And you mentioned retention there. Taylor, I'm keen to get your view, as the Chief of People at Transformative, maybe some of the, we'll get on to training and education in a bit, I think, but maybe some of the more sort of fun, uplifting stuff you're trying to do to keep people in the business. Obviously there's been a lot of doom and gloom the past year. How are you trying to boost the morale and keep people happy on the job?
That's a great question. A very good friend of mine once said that the people team or HR team is not the love boat. So we don't throw parties. Our job is not to, give everyone the snacks. While we do love to give people the snacks, I think the real heart and meaning of culture and engagement, and really at the root of that is ultimately the goal of retention, is to respect your team members. So right now we're trying to understand what their individual pain points are, and in that, obviously not trying to find a one-size-fits-all solution for engagement or for morale. Each team member is motivated by something different. So the key is really just truly believing in your people, understanding what they're looking for, and then doing your best to provide them a great experience, to respect them. A good example of that is not expecting folks to always stay late, which is so systemic in the business, obviously. But our team members have lives, and we need to acknowledge that we need to fill their emotional bank account as much as we take from it and make withdrawals. So really just instead of doing the things that normally folks would think about, pinball machines, snacks, those types of things, what we really just try to do is treat them like people. And to make sure that we understand what satisfies them and what they need to, find that balance with work and life.
Absolutely, and I think that's pretty applicable across all industries as well. And I think, Danielle, I know that you're doing a lot around, Ron mentioned about training and education, you're doing a lot around that at Transformative. How are you thinking about using that as a way to try and attract more talent into the business?
Yeah, I think with Scott's statistic that he gave about the people who are recertifying in the space yet not working in the traditional ambulance space, we have this void where all of our institutions or companies are fishing from the same pond. So it becomes really challenging because there's some things that private ambulance services can't compete with or offer that are as competitive as outside using the skill set of a paramedic or an EMT in a non-traditional ambulance space. So we had to figure out ways, just like Cataldo did, and running, their own EMT programs and things such as that. So Ron, you had mentioned a stepping stone, and getting into EMS. I've heard that for the past 13 or 14 years of EMS as a stepping stone. And earlier in my career, I was really offended by that. that because I wanted to be a manager. I wanted to be a leader in EMS and have that career pathway. And I was often told, like, it's a stepping stone. It's okay. If they're here for 2 years, it's okay. And it took a lot to adapt a mentality where I actually was okay with that. So I don't think of it as a stepping stone anymore. I think of it as a foundation. And I think in EMS, we need to be okay with helping building that foundation and using our training and education techniques and tactics to build something that's valuable to someone's long-term career plans. And if they convert to wanting to stay in EMS, like the 4 of us, we'll add Robin, the 5 of us have, then fantastic for the industry. However, if we continue to mold and develop them into a PA, into an MD, into a nurse, respiratory therapist, a flight paramedic, critical care, whatever it is, we are also helping our biggest filter in the way we look through things, which is our patient. So I think it's time that we become okay with that. So some things that we've done in regards to development and ensuring that we're reducing turnover are creating career pathways, much like many other ambulance services are currently doing. And I know Taylor is, and I'm sure Ron and Scott are advocates of this. So we've created pathways that take somebody who are not yet certified into an entry-level role. It could be chair car or vaccinations or testing. And then we give them a really solidified timeline with very clear expectations. If you see yourself here, this is what you need to do. This is what we'll provide to you. So some companies, including, I believe, Cataldo and Transformative, have been compensating or have played around with compensating people to do on-the-job paid training. So we have paid people to take the EMT program. We have paid people upon graduation from the EMT program. And we're currently trying to figure out and analyze the data that says, which was more effective? What was the motivator? And we're now finding that money is not necessarily the motivator in a lot of these cases. So as much as COVID has driven people currently away or needing a break from what they're doing in EMS, it's actually drawn this large group of resources of people who felt a call to help during COVID. So they may have functioned in the vaccination or testing world, but now we're transitioning to doing some other more patient-facing roles within the organization. So defining the goals and pathways, setting timelines, ensuring the reasonable expectations are communicated very effectively and are understood in the way that we mean them are some of the things that we've done. And lastly, online learning became the norm during COVID-19. Everything went remote. So it's how do you continue to use that technology and ensure that we can maximize it to create a good experience for the learner, but they're adult learners. And that most of these people who we're building a foundation for are not traditional collegiate students. So online learning can be really challenging. So we have to figure out what is the best hybrid approach. And we should also evaluate what our learning objectives are and ensure that we're truly having meaningful engagement. So people looking at their instructional staff, their equipment, and their objectives are going to be more key than ever.
Danielle, that's so interesting, and I love the learning programs and progressing people through the organization and initially incentivizing them through additional pay. And I guess broadly speaking, you're talking around a transformative in changing your relationship with your employees. And Scott talked, and that is really key to Blink. And Blink, yes, is a piece of technology. It's an enabler, but there has to be a cultural change from the organization and a desire to get much closer to their business. And that's where some great results can come. And Scott, I know you've talked around previously that you compare the employee-employer relationship to that of a spouse, and actually if your wife or husband said I love you once a year and that was it, you probably wouldn't have the best marriage. And actually playing that forward and what you just taught there, Danielle, was so true in terms of I think what transformative and Ron, I know this firsthand from what you're doing at Cataldo in really stepping up and wanting to get much closer to your workforce. I guess looking then broadly, I'd be really interesting, and perhaps Scott, we start with you and then open it up. The role that technology can play, and Danielle and Taylor mentioned some awesome initiatives that they're running, but perhaps your view on what role can technology play in accelerating some of those programs, but also helping combat those challenges, yes, with staff turnover, but also enabling providers to deliver a better standard of patient care, which is, as Danielle said, is really the aim of the game here.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, one of the things that I think, for us, those of us who've been in this since the early 90s, the social dynamic part of the employment relationship was actually the piece that kept most EMS providers tied to the profession, right? It was the folks that we worked with, our partners, the interactions we had with other folks in the workplace. Well, one, as a function of being, workforce shortage, we have fewer opportunities for people to be back at the station, joking around and having a good time. And so, like much of what's occurred, over the last decade with social media, there is a need, right? I think we underplayed as leaders the need for that social connection to your coworkers. And so when I look at products like Blink, where you have the ability, I think leaders are recognizing we need to create that virtual space because our folks are not getting the actual face-to-face time that they might have otherwise received or experienced when they worked in this profession 10, 15 years ago. So, I think the role of technology is sort of a couple of pieces. One, it does, provide that ability to keep the human connection, right? But I do not know, when I first started in 1990, I took $1 an hour pay cut from stocking shelves at a grocery store. And so, it wasn't a job that you did for the money. It was something bigger than that. Now, I think the connection and providing that connection between you and your coworkers and, ultimately at some point, really a patient in the work that you do. But I think also recognizing that, EMS folks tend to sort of only understand EMS folks. So if you have a spouse at home or you have family at home or you have friends who just don't really seem to understand what it is that you do, products like Blink or even a Newton 360 have the ability to create this environment where you can remain connected to people who are your sort of support network, virtual or otherwise. And really, I think a lot of people have demonized some of these social media platforms, saying, geez, my 15-year-old will text me from the living room for a glass of water. And I sometimes get offended by that. But in reality, if we can take the technology, augment the existing social dynamic in the workplace, really, there's a lot of really great things that have come out of social media, Facebook, LinkedIn. Frankly, guys, I wouldn't have met you all, right? Had we not connected through those platforms. So I see this as an opportunity for employers to, one, put enough information in the hands of their leaders and their employees so that they can perform better. Oftentimes as leaders, your average frontline supervisor, and we don't have any research in EMS, but your average frontline supervisor in retail only coaches, mentors, engages employees roughly 6 to 8% of the time. So you now take that person and you put them in a distributed work environment, we're probably talking maybe 2 to 3% of the time. And so that, if in fact you encounter, coach, and mentor those people 2 to 3% of the time, well, then you really need all of the help you can get, and you need to ensure that you have enough information from the underlying, business metrics, the stuff that can help you connect with that person, to make sure that when you do have that it is the most enriched and meaningful encounter that can occur. So, I think that they've gotten a bad rap oftentimes, but really, if we think about where we might be, or all of the really powerful, wonderful things that social media or technology type enabled tools have provided for folks, this is just, EMS evolves quickly from a patient care perspective. This is one area that I have seen a very slow adoption, and it has been to the detriment of the service. So I think this is a real opportunity. If an EMS leader is not looking at tools like Blink, like a Newton 360, frankly, you are missing the boat.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. And it's all about, we think, trying to meet employees where they are, whether we like it or not. People my age, we're used to communicating on our devices, and, we may be a bit sort of tentative about face-to-face interaction, as weird as that may be. And Ron, I know, at Cataldo, you have quite the sort of tech ecosystem with Blink, with Prodigy EMS, your e-learning platform, which I'm sure Rob would have been so happy to speak about and sing its praises. But
and Newton, right?
And Newton, of course. Yeah, I was. Let me get to it, man. Let me get to it.
Sorry, George.
And so, how do you see that whole tech ecosystem helping what you're trying to do as a business at Cataldo going forward? 5-10 years from now.
Yeah, a lot of great discussion. So I want to touch on a little bit of what Scott said, and then back to Danielle too. So as Scott said, we have a young workforce. They're used to the technology, the social media, right? The messaging from his daughter from the other room to get him a glass of water. That's common practice these days, right? I would prefer to go to the base day room and have a conversation face to face with the employees. But as organizations our size, both us and Cataldo and Transformative, we have 23 base locations. I can't see every employee every day, but sometimes I do need to message every employee every day. So having that technology is obviously critical. And as we've said, most of them like it. They prefer to receive the message over their handheld device versus me coming to them in person and talking to them. Back to what Danielle said and how we can utilize this technology to help with the recruitment and the retention. I use the expression, it's a stepping stone. Danielle referenced it as building a foundation, which is true. And, many of us, several of us on this panel today, started entry level and worked our way up the ranks through EMS. So it can be done. And there are many of people throughout our organizations at varying levels of management and disciplines that have done exactly that. So how do we promote that through technology to show people that it can be done? Similar to what we've done here and what it sounds like Danielle and Taylor are doing at Transformative, creating that roadmap for the employee to see how does the technology at the individual's fingertips show them that roadmap for them. So where am I at my career? I'm in the system as a entry-level chair car driver and I want to become an EMT. Well, the technology kind of drives you down that road to how do I get there? You take the 120-hour curriculum EMT program, you do this, this, and this, and now you've hit this next milestone and can continue to kind of coach them through the career laddering, if you will, opportunities in this industry. But, we do, again, 850 or so employees. We added about 1,200 people throughout the height of COVID with vaccinators and testers. So upwards of 2,000 employees, remote significantly throughout our service area. Technology is critical. Both the social piece, the educational pieces we've talked about, utilizing Prodigy and many other platforms to be able to recognize and acknowledge our employees.
Thank you, Ron. I could not agree more. I think technology will only continue to play a greater and greater role in the industry. I guess, Danielle, Taylor, given that the powerhouse of technology that Transformative truly is in all of the different tools and systems you invest in for your employees, what's your take on this discussion in terms of how can this really empower and help you keep your employees and perhaps drive some of those initiatives?
Yeah, I would just say that Danielle and I have this conversation often, is that there's so many platforms and there's so many options and there's so many things that we could use to communicate or engage with our team members, and it's hard to make the decision on what the one tool is because they already have so many tools or sign-ons or things that they're trying to manage through the organization or any organization. So really what we're trying to do is provide real-time communication with them. It's Ron mentioned obviously a remote workforce, but prior to it even being remote, it was just completely transient and 24/7. So think about the team members that are working on the 12 hours that we're sleeping. If you work at Transformative, you don't do that, of course, but for those organizations that are less busy, folks are sleeping when their team members are there during the day. So communicating with them at all hours is really important. So having a clear communication strategy with your folks is super important and something that we prioritize as a top 3 for the organization. Danielle, do you have any additional insight?
Yeah, I think as we were initially testing the use of Blink to figure out how it would be impactful, Taylor and I and the team had some pretty big revelations about, could we truly engage people in a meaningful way? There's that word again. And often emails get overlooked and text messages are abundant. And, as I'm sitting here on this Zoom call with all you great people, I have all these notifications going off on my phone. It's Prodigy, it's Smartsheet, it's all of these different things. And it's really overwhelming. And I remember talking to my niece just a couple of weeks ago, who's much younger than I am and very much in the age of technology, in her mid-20s right now. And they do feel, the millennials and Gen Zers do feel overwhelmed by too much stimulation at certain times through technology, but love to Snapchat or Instagram or text when they want to. So I love the fact that Blink enables everything in one place. So they know if I'm going to get communicated to by Transformative, I can go to this place. I don't have to search for an email or check out a newsletter or try to find a text or try to find a phone number. The directory alone, the hub, it simplifies. So one of the things that Taylor has brought to our organization over the past year was also using this filter. On the clinical side, I use, the patient, but on the people team side, she uses what can make our team members' lives easier. And Blink has been able to do that, and has almost been this kind of saver of time for us and given our administrative, minutes back to us, and sent a meaningful message. So I think technology is important, but the right technology is important. So engagement, like Scott said, and developing the career pathways like Ron talked about. But I think finding one place that the technology is meaningful is important, because we're throwing so many things at people. They need to have a hub, and Blink actually has the hub.
Thank you, Danielle. I mean, this has been such a fascinating discussion, and thank you all for joining. Just one eye on the time, and what I do want to do though is go to one closing sentence from all of you in terms of what do you think other industries can learn from what you've been through, what the EMS industry has been through over the past 12 months. And perhaps, Danielle, we start with you, and let's go around.
There's so many things, I guess. As I think about one thing that another industry can learn, I guess it's about resilience. So everyone in the panel talked about the type of person who's successful in EMS runs towards the fire. They show up, they want to be part of the solution. And this is a 15-month problem. So we're used to dealing with mass casualty incidents that can last 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, and then we get the break. It's been 15 months and now we're starting to get a break and we're really tired. So I think the resilience that's required and the dedication of the leadership team to hold everyone together, recognize your team members' attributes and values, and this whole theory of power down. As a leader in any industry through a large crisis, healthcare or otherwise, allowing your team members to utilize their skill sets and rely on them and power down helps the leadership team. And I think that's one of our biggest takeaways.
Awesome. Thank you, Danielle. Taylor?
I think it has to do with just understanding the value of people. So organizations often focus on the revenue that's coming through the door and other financial KPIs, but realistically, until you have an organization that has no people and is completely run by widgets, you have to focus on how you can make sure that your team members feel valued, respected, to Danielle's point, are engaged, and you're really working on creating an ecosystem where they can be successful for whatever that means for them.
Awesome. Thank you. I couldn't agree more. Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I think to sort of echo off of the earlier comments, I think one of the things that the last year a lot of employers have figured out when they started sending some of their administrative staff home was recognizing, people work so that they can live, not the other way around. And I think recognizing the impact that your company has on that individual's life, right? Because you don't just employ the individual, you employ their company. My fire chief at our holiday event every year would first have the firefighters stand up and recognize the firefighters for sort of their volunteer time, and then sit them down and then stand up their family members and say, you have done without this person on important holidays, important events, children's graduations, birthdays, because they went to go help and be in service to others. So I think probably the number one thing that at least I think organizations could learn, and we learned this pretty quickly, was there is a human cost to someone working in your organization, and you need to, the employer who figures out how to make that cost as little as possible, right, and support that employee, to Taylor's point, the whole person, they will be successful.
Totally agree. Thank you, Scott. And Ron?
I would just say employee engagement. I say to our folks all the time, both ownership and to the field providers, we don't sell a product per se, right? We don't create a widget, we sell our service. It's our employees and their skill set. So engaging the employees, making sure they feel satisfied in their employment, we get the hurdles out of the way so they can do their job successfully, and all of that through a good constant communication and engaging the employees.
Thank you, Ron. And I completely agree. And one thing or two things that really come out there is the relationship the employees have with the employer, communication, and just how important engagement is across the organization. So once again, a huge thank you for not only everything that has happened over the past 12 months and all the work that you and your staff have done, but also for taking some time out and joining us today. Just before we go though, I think my colleague George has got some questions that are coming in from the audience that we would love to ask you, if that's okay.
We do have a few, Matt. We do have a few. And first up, from an anonymous attendee, we've got what needs to change in terms of government funding for the EMS industry. We know that it's significantly underfunded compared to a lot of the other healthcare industries in the US. And so I know there's been some progress over the past 6 to 8 months in terms of funding, but what needs to change there? Scott, why don't we go with you? Yeah, sure. So, it's tough here in the United States, at least on the government spending end, right? The monies related to EMS are roughly 0.8083 of the total national healthcare expenditure. So when you look at, the reimbursement received from both the Medicare program, which is our retiree 65 program, or the Medicaid program, right? Generally speaking, they've been reimbursing EMS agencies under their costs now for decades. And really, until there's some focus and understanding and representation by government of really the healthcare, I think a lot of people will often I'll hear, geez, the bill was X number of dollars and I only went 1 mile. Well, the most important thing that occurred during that trip was not the distance you were, it was the healthcare that got provided in the back. So I think we need to be a little more dynamic in the way that we're looking at this, not only from a reimbursement perspective, but then other potentially tax incentives or tax breaks for people working in EMS, opportunities for, say, reduced, federal HUD-backed mortgages, or, as Danielle mentioned, if it's not a college affiliated paramedic program, it's not eligible for federal student loans. So I think there are, endless opportunities at the AAA. We have our work plan drafted. We're going to be pitching it to the board in about 2 weeks. That, has probably 20 different items and things that we think need to occur that are all, for the most part, legislatively backed. But I think the number one being, we need to start collecting data on EMS workforce, period, and understanding the scope of the problem. Where are we at today? Where are we heading to? It won't be a simple solution. We didn't get here, in one day. It's going to take some time to get out of it. Absolutely. And anything to add, DT or Ron?
Could probably go on for hours, if not days. To be honest with you, Scott did a nice job. Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think just very quickly before we go, Ron, and I think there's a pretty tailor-made question for you here. It's do you use the Blink app as the main source of communication, or do you have other channels that are used for certain messages?
And that was directed to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. We do. It is our main source of all communication. We have eliminated or stopped issuing email addresses to employees. Those that had it were grandfathered in, but there is a cutoff date that will go away, and everyone is 100% on Blink for the primary means of communication. And then obviously they navigate to the hub to access all other methods of technology in which we make available to them.
Great. DT, are you going to be brave enough to switch off emails, or?
We would love to do that. So definitely a transition.
Yeah.
One of the organizations that we manage has team member email addresses, and one of them did not. So it was always a challenge making sure that the domain got through whatever the private email address was. So this combats that challenge as well. And it's been building a culture. So we ran a couple of pilot groups, one as small as 5 people and the largest as large as 56 in teams. And we created a really nice organizational structure that Blink actually helped facilitate better span of control and messaging. So it's part of an empowerment plan. It's part of making sure that the leadership structure of the organization has the tools and resources to allow it to be successful with that power down mentality that I talked about before, and ensuring that span of control and whoever's leading a team or a section or a district, et cetera, has the ability to communicate appropriately. So between the content moderator role, the admin role, the ability for people to like or comment, the ability to notify someone or not notify someone, do the requirement where they must acknowledge the message. These are all features that will allow us to hopefully use Blink as our primary means going forward.
And I can tell you as a longer time user, those features are game changers. They really are. One of our managers just put something pretty critical out yesterday to the team, and the acknowledgement feature assures you that everyone's acknowledged it, read it, at least received it, right? Can't make them read it, but received it. So no, those are nice features.
Thank you, Danielle and Ron. And Danielle, the chocolate Smarties are on their way, so look out for those. Matt,
that's my British friends. Thank you.
Thank you all so much, guys. I think we've got time now just for a few more questions, but back to the Blink team. First up, and let's start with a fairly easy one to ease us in here. So, Lawrence, over to our esteemed product director. The question is, how do we get visibility into longer term product roadmaps?
Yeah, great question. Actually, the best place is the website I added at the end of my presentation. If you head to portal.joinblink.com, you can see kind of what we're thinking of there. It doesn't include everything. The kind of stuff we're keeping a bit hush isn't on there, but everything that we want your say in is there. So go vote. If something's not there, add to it. And yeah. And the other way is, if you really want to get involved, I want to chat to as many of you as possible. So reach out to your customer success manager, and they'll hook us up in a meeting.
Thank you, Lawrence. And while I've got you, that there is another one here for you as well, I think. Question is there going to be an option whereby a post is reported, it gives the reporter the ability to choose a predefined reason for reporting it? And I think one we've heard before, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's come up a few times recently, actually. It's something we're looking into. We haven't got, it's not fixed on our roadmap yet, but we are looking into it and yeah, looking at options. But no date to give you all at the moment.
Brilliant, thank you, Lawrence. And one more for you. There's one more product one, and then I'll let you off the hook. Would it be possible to add an option for an admin to administrator a timeout to users that breaches policy of standards of the site? One thing that we may have up our sleeves, right?
Yes. So this feature is live today. If you're an administrator and you can administer a person, you can go to their user profile, and there's a way to restrict their access to post to feed, which will just mean they can't comment, can't like, and can't post to feed. So it's there. If you need us to show us, let us know your email address, and we'll send you a help article to it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lawrence. And thank you for everyone who's answered some questions today. Sean, that's it from us. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, George. Thanks, Matt. I think you might have missed your true calling in life. I expect to see the double act on your own podcast soon. Thank you especially to Danielle, Taylor, Scott, and Ron for so many great insights. Really love that. That's all from us, folks. As always, we're never more than a quick message away. So get in touch if we can help with anything at all. Or if you'd like to know more about anything you've seen today, just drop us a line and we will be in touch. Thank you again for all of your support. We wouldn't be here without you, and we couldn't be prouder to serve you and all of your teams. Thank you. Goodbye.